Hi, welcome to Naptime Nutrition. I'm Yaffi Lvova, registered dietitian nutritionist with Baby Bloom Nutrition, and with me today is Rachel Goodman, registered dietitian, CDN, and one of the reasons I have a professional crush on Rachel is because we both use the hashtag dessert for breakfast. So today we're going to be talking about why breakfast is important, what breakfast is, and how you can take dessert and make it into breakfast. So thank you for joining me, Rachel.
Thanks for having me.
So you're in New York, and you also do, tell us what you do.
Okay, so registered dietitian nutritionist who counsels people into having a better, healthy relationship with food. A lot of times, we do the diet and we have the restrictions, and it confuses us with all these like rules that people are giving us. And then you just come to a place where like, I don't even know what to eat anymore. Like I have all these headlines telling me this, eat that, what do I do? And I kind of help people figure that out. While at the same time tuning into their own body cues and figuring out what they actually enjoy eating. And the end goal is to make peace with food and honor your health from a place that feels good to your body.
I think it's so important, and we talk about having a healthy relationship with food all the time. So let's just define that. As an adult, that means being able to eat without being stressed about it. Being able to eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full, being able to go to social events and eat and not worry about what's going to be available. And of course, this, we also take into account allergies or religious restrictions, but we as
Tolerance.
Society, right, intolerances, yeah. We're so into restricting ourselves and denying our biological functions. And so Rachel and I are, well, we're going to talk about dessert.
Yeah, exactly. Because dessert is just one of those things. It's like, I feel like it's like a God-given right for everyone to enjoy, and you can, and you don't have to like freak out that you're going to lose control over it. And there's also ways where you're like having that dessert and enjoying it, but you can also at the same time honor your health while having dessert. So I think that's what we're going to talk about, right?
Right. Honoring your health and honoring your needs, whether they're physical, social, emotional. And that all comes into play when we talk about nutrition and we talk about self-care and we talk about just taking care of yourself in general and taking care of your family. So first, what is breakfast? Yeah. Well, breakfast is the first meal of the day, and it's called breakfast. We break it down to break fast because, well, you're not eating while you're sleeping. So you wake up not having eaten for 10 hours, 12 hours, depending on who you are. And so that's your break fast. And for different people, it's different. And when Rachel was mentioning rules around food, we have even rules that we don't think about, these social constructs that tell us what breakfast should be. And
right.
So
it's really just like breaking a fast, and it could be like on anything. Like you're just breaking that fast, right?
Yeah, I like to wake up and have a big breakfast, and I know not everyone is like that. And it is important to start eating something to kickstart your day, but different people have different needs when it comes to breakfast. And one of my favorite examples is that growing up, I thought grilled cheese was a breakfast food. And if you think about it, if you take your grilled cheese sandwich and you open it, it's just toast with cheese on it. And why wouldn't that be breakfast? But somehow when you make it into a sandwich, then it's not a breakfast food. And that's a social construct. That's society telling you what you should and shouldn't be having for breakfast. And we don't need to listen to those rules. There's no reason for them.
And what's interesting also, if you notice, like different cultures have different foods that are considered breakfast.
Right.
So really the social construct, like I remember when I did a year abroad in Israel, we were having like vegetables and eggs for breakfast, and everyone was like, what, like we're supposed to have cereal? Like who's having vegetables in the morning? Like it really is the mentality that you grow up in. So there really is no like limitation to what food you can have. It's really just breaking a fast.
Right. So we can talk, the one thing that you do really want from breakfast is something that's going to stick to your ribs, because You know, if you're one of these people who doesn't like to eat breakfast or wakes up not hungry, maybe you do want to have something light and then have a larger meal an hour or two later. But in general, you want some kind of meal in the first half of the day, within a couple of hours of when you wake up, that's going to stick to your ribs. And what does that mean? That just means that there's balance, that you have some nutritional context. It's not just one nutrient, because when you have, if you have only only an apple, let's say, an apple is healthy, let's say, but if you don't give it context, you don't dip it in peanut butter or have it with some yogurt or have it with I don't know, guacamole, whatever it is, you have to give it context. It's not going to keep you satisfied until your next meal. So for those people who don't like to have breakfast, I like to suggest waking up and having something like an apple or a couple of crackers to kickstart all of your body processes, and then move to something that's more balanced. But you really do want to look at your plate and see that you have some fat, some protein, and some fiber, because that's really what's going to take you to the next meal.
And I think another reason why it's important to have that satisfying meal in the morning, or at least something in the morning if you wake up like without an appetite, is because in order to, you're basically going to have like a backlash later if you don't have breakfast in the morning. So sometimes you'll be like, I don't have an appetite, I don't really want to eat, but your body does need to eat because it fasted overnight, even though you don't feel it. So having at least something light will help you later in the day, because sometimes when people skip that time in breakfast, they kind of miss the hunger cues and go to like overly hungry later because they didn't have breakfast, and then they're going to end up overeating and kind of throw off the hunger fullness cues and being able to eat the amounts that they want to eat, right? They'll end up overeating throughout the day because they skipped breakfast. So that's why, yeah, even though you may not be so hungry when you wake up, you might miss that window of hunger because then the day starts and you're at work and then you get too hungry. So you definitely want to have something in the morning.
Right. And I've spoken before in other segments about the evolution of the craving throughout the day. So at the beginning, let's say you get a little bit hungry and you're ignoring it because you're too busy or what have you. You start off by craving something substantial. And as you ignore that biological urge to eat, your cravings become closer to more and more simple foods. You start, what started with a craving for, let's say, a hamburger, ends up with a craving for a milkshake, because your body is just changing that signal to tell you, right, it wants that refined food to tell you, get something in me now, because the milkshake is going to be absorbed and used faster than something that's going to be more balanced with the fat, protein, and fiber that I was talking about. And that's, so if you ignore that first beginning of the day, you're setting yourself up for these cravings later on.
Right, 100%.
Yeah. So that's what I mean by stick to your ribs. You want something with some balance. You want to make sure that you've got a couple of different macronutrients going on, as well as your micronutrients. You want to make sure you've got some colors. And Rachel mentioned the breakfast salad. I love that idea, having salad with breakfast. Any way you can add vegetables to something,
yeah,
golden.
In eggs, or like even in your pancakes, like throwing in some zucchini into your pancakes or something like that. Like, it doesn't have to be like a traditional salad.
Right. Well, and we can all use the creativity boost, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So why is breakfast necessary? Well, we went over that. You really want to break your fast. You want to kickstart your day. You want to tell your body it's time to wake up and start moving. You want to head off those cravings from later. And it's really, people do better when they have some breakfast. And if you really don't want breakfast, try to start off with an apple or crackers, maybe a smoothie, a small smoothie, something to just get something in your system. And then you'll be able to pay attention to your hunger and satiety cues better throughout the day.
Yeah.
100%. So our big topic, how do we take dessert to breakfast? I'm going to do a little fun screen sharing here and let Rachel take over with the popsicle.
Literally, yeah, like first of all, like, just breakfast, like I'm the type of person that goes to sleep thinking what she's gonna have for breakfast. Like, that's me. So first of all, I love this topic that we're talking about, breakfast, because like that's my favorite meal. And then there's dessert, which I love. So like dessert as breakfast is just the ultimate for me anyway. I think like anyone could love having dessert for breakfast. Maybe that, if you're not like super into eating in the morning, maybe having something dessert-like for breakfast would be more like of a motivator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's good. So we're going to start with your popsicle post from today on Instagram. So
Yeah.
tell me more about that.
Okay, so why this would make a perfect dessert for breakfast is, first of all, it's a popsicle. So automatically, you know, dessert comes up, peanut butter, chocolate, that's very dessert-like, but it's amazing for breakfast because there's Greek yogurt in it and there's peanut butter in it. So those two things provide you with a great amount of protein. And then you have the peanuts are providing the fat. And those are things that are really going to satiate you, especially in the morning when you have typically protein, a good amount of protein that really helps keep you satisfied for a while, and then also helps regulate you throughout the day with your cravings. So it has the Greek yogurt and it has the peanut butter, and then to sweeten it has some maple syrup so that it has that dessert-like taste and the chocolate. And then you have the crunch and the creaminess. So all around when you're eating it, it's like you're having a dessert, but it's really a well-rounded breakfast with protein and with healthy fats. And then you also, if you put like the crunch on top of the peanuts, you have some fiber going on there too. So overall, it's I think it's like an indulgent way to start your morning in the best way.
That's amazing. And while you bring up the fiber in the peanuts, well, let's talk about sometimes I've heard a number of times, and maybe you've heard this too from clients and the general public, people believe that when you blend something that has fiber, the fiber goes away. And the truth is that people often confuse blending and juicing. When you use an extraction juicer, that extraction is taking the fiber out. But if you take something that has fiber and blend it, you're still getting that fiber.
Yeah. I think it's what it's saying is when you blend it, is that there is an aspect of the fiber that like your body will have to break down that the blender does for you, but there's two types of fiber in fiber. So the insoluble fiber is kind of what we're breaking down, but you also have the soluble fiber. So it's still in there and you're still getting the benefits. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a big point of confusion for people. So if you were to take like taking peanut butter, if you have a smooth peanut butter versus a crunchy one, they're minor differences, but you're still getting the benefit there, even though it's blended. And if you make a smoothie out of strawberries, for example, you're blending it, you still get the benefit of that fiber.
Yeah, you still have the cholesterol lowering effect. You still have the satiating effect because the soluble fiber is kind of what causes kind of like a swelling in the stomach and keeps you satisfied. So it's important to remember that when people are saying you're breaking down the fiber, you're breaking down the insoluble fiber, which is like, think about the skin on apples or things like that. But you're still definitely getting the benefits of the fiber in there.
Right. It is still a nutritious food, the same as it was before blending. So let's just get rid of that misconception. So now let's go to, speaking of fiber. So this is, one of my favorite Instagram breakfast cookies. So this is a recipe that I developed for Toddler Test Kitchen, and if you're a Phoenix local, you should definitely join me for a Toddler Test Kitchen cooking class for ages 2 through 6. Obviously, this is not my child's breakfast because it's got coffee, and well, I don't believe in giving children coffee. But so this is a cookie. So this is a cookie. It's based in oats, which is a fantastic source of soluble and insoluble fiber, and it's got pumpkin. This one was made with pumpkin. Sometimes you can use sweet potato or squash puree, and the sweetener was honey. I have flax meal in there, which contributes fiber as well as fat and some protein, sunflower seeds for protein, and you have some anti-inflammatory fats there too, and chopped up fruit. I think that with this version, I actually did some chopped up apples, which was fun, dried apples. And this is just a fun way to make, it's a different way to make oatmeal. We have this overnight oats sensation, which is fun. But this is just another way, and these keep really well. They travel really well.
Yeah, they're easy to grab and go, I find.
Yeah, these are great for grab and go, and you can do so many different things with this.
Yeah. I like to put some, like a drizzle on chocolate on top.
Yeah, you really like drizzles of chocolate. I am
Yeah.
not against that at all.
It's like also pretty, you know?
It's pretty. It is
It's
pretty.
important to also have your food look appealing to you, you know? So whatever that is for you, that's what you do, whether it's putting some colorful fruit on top or a drizzle of chocolate. Making food look good also makes you want to eat it. We eat with our eyes first.
It's true. And not only is that true for us, but it's true for our children as well. So we advocate having a colorful plate because those colors indicate different nutritional components, but it also makes the plate more attractive for both us and our kids. So it's important to have that component as well. So good point.
Yeah, and if we're talking like in terms for kids, let's say like the breakfast cookies, you can also shape it on your plate like a smiley face. Maybe put the 2 cookies as the eyes and then some strawberries as a smile. Like kids like playing with their food kind of and making it
right.
So that's a great way to kind of get kids more into it.
And you don't have to be that Pinteresting to do that. You can make a smiley face with a smear of peanut butter and the cookies are the eyes. You don't have to do anything fancy. Nothing fancy. So how can we take a dessert recipe and make it a breakfast recipe? I feel like my color is fading with the sunset. Okay, that's better. So how can we take a dessert recipe? Go ahead.
Okay. So when it comes to having, like, let's say a dessert for breakfast or just in general having a dessert that's more nutrient dense, there's certain key ingredients that I find using over and over that work well with desserts. For example, for sweetness, dates and bananas and applesauce are great sources of natural sugar, and you also have the fiber in there. And then there's like different things for texture, like there's avocado, which works great as a pudding base. You have coconut milk, coconut cream, milk's a little thinner. Coconut cream, for example, for the popsicles or mixing it with Greek yogurt to add a little bit more protein. There's also almond flour, which is great, I find, for like texture, like if you want to make energy balls or like as a crust, or sometimes even like a cookie dough. It's like this new trend of just mixing basically almond flour, because then it gets this like doughy texture when you mix it with liquids, and then with some nut butter, cocoa powder, and then you can kind of make like this like cookie dough consistency. Or nuts work well for like mixing together dates and nuts and turning it into energy balls.
And cashews, soaked cashews, if you want that creamy that creamy feel. Yeah,
so those are kind of the ingredients that I find myself using over and over again when I'm making desserts that are great for breakfast, because they're nutrient dense, but they also provide the sweetness and the textures that you want.
Right, and I totally agree. I like using the soaked cashews. I made a breakfast chocolate pudding that's on my Instagram. Yeah, that was awesome. And that was just soaked cashews and dates and cocoa powder. And I just blended it up in the Vitamix, and it was amazing.
Your protein and your healthy fat and your fiber. So it's perfect. And you're having pudding for breakfast. So
why not have pudding for breakfast? You know what? Cocoa is, if you ever taste just baking cocoa straight from the container, it's bitter. It's not chocolate from the store. It doesn't have all of that stuff added to it. You get a good cocoa and the difference between cocoa and cacao, just so that you know, because this is a really big thing. Cacao is less processed, and it's got a little bit more nutrition, but it's also a little bit difficult to find, and it's more expensive. So I find that using cocoa is a good substitute. And so I generally use cocoa just because it's a little bit easier to find, but that's the difference in case it comes up. But it's got a lot of antioxidants, you know, like chocolate gets a bad rap. So chocolate as Snickers is not as nutritious, but chocolate as cocoa powder in my breakfast pudding.
Context of what you're having it with You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like chocolate with the Snickers is with the caramel. I mean, don't get me wrong, Snickers, delicious. Enjoy it if you're having it.
Enjoy it.
But you know, it's all within the context of what you're having it with.
Right. 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 So I totally agree with that. So here's some other things. First, when you're looking at a dessert recipe, so I was telling Rachel before we went on, one of the best things that I like to do for a special breakfast is a breakfast cobbler. And so the first thing that I do when I look at the recipe is I I do something that's based in fruit, and I use fresh fruit, sometimes frozen, and I just automatically have the sugar. And I try to replace the sugar with dates or with something a little more natural. And I'm not anti-sugar by any means, but starting your day off with a very sugar-heavy, true dessert is going to set you up for a crash and those cravings later. So you really want to focus more on the more nutritious, more whole ingredients.
Yeah.
So, and most dessert recipes, you can have the sugar, and then I change up some of the ratios. Like you mentioned a lot of ingredients that you like. I love oats. I love using oats.
I forgot that one. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's great for topping on a cobbler, and you could just mix it up with something sweet. And with the topping, you really do need some amount of sugar. Otherwise, it's not going to crumb the way that it's supposed to. But you have some kind of oil, or full fat butter.
I just want to say one thing also in regard to that is that, you know, when we're trying to make things more nutrient dense and like cutting things out, like that's great, but like don't look to cut it out too much, because then you're compromising on texture and flavor, and then the food is not satisfying. So
right,
it's important to find that balance.
It does depend on the recipe too, because sugar is important for taste, but it also has a chemical reaction within recipes, and sometimes you just can't cut it, and sometimes you cannot substitute. Like if you were to try to make a bread recipe and sub the sugar with like dates instead, it wouldn't work, because the reactions that sugar is involved with wouldn't work. So you can't do that all the time. So when I say that I'm having the sugar, it's more just to take it to breakfast, because when I do dessert, it's all the sugar.
Oh yeah.
I have a favorite cobbler recipe, and when I make it for breakfast, instead of doing a cup of flour and half a cup of oats, I do a cup of oats and then half a cup of almond meal. And you mentioned almond flour. Almond meal is similar. It's just a larger grain, so you get more texture, but it's just ground up almonds. And so that gives you some protein. And then I take that delicious cobbler and pour some yogurt on top of it. And so that adds some good fat and some protein. And that's really how I make breakfast cobbler.
And I think it's awesome that you said you add the Greek yogurt, because in terms of breakfast, if you want to think what you can add, more about like what you can add than take away. You know, with the cobbler, you want to cut down the sugar, but you also want to think like, what can I add to make this more nutritious versus taking everything away, whether it's yogurt or fruit. So I actually like, I have something similar that I do with cheesecake, where like I alter things, and it's really, I would say, breakfast friendly, where I keep some of the cream cheese. I would say like half or like 30% of the cream cheese, because again, cream cheese has fat gives flavor. You don't want to take all of that away.
Right.
So I definitely reduce it significantly, but I keep some, and then I replace with blended cottage cheese. So I have more of that protein. Sometimes Greek yogurt, depending on like what kind of flavor I want, because I find Greek yogurt's a little more like more of a sour, like a tangy taste, which is fine if that's what you're in the mood in, but I like to do the cottage cheese. And then the crust, I keep the same with the graham crackers, or like maybe I'll do half with oats, but again, I'll keep some of the graham crackers, at least half of the graham crackers. Again, just to like make it feel like you're really having cheesecake versus completely sub everything out. And then maybe put fruit on top, so like we're adding things to it. So if I'm having cheesecake, like I love cheesecake. So if I'm deciding to have cheesecake, I'm having it all the way, gonna enjoy it. But let's say if I want something for breakfast that's lighter on the sugar, high on the protein, those are kind of the swaps that I would do, where I'm not taking everything away, but I'm making it more breakfast friendly.
I think that sounds great. I would probably mix the graham cracker with almond meal just to like.
Oh, or that.
Way. I would be afraid that the oats would get kind of soggy, because the soluble fiber in there would like Well, if it works, I would try it.
Well, I mean, I would probably, with the oats, like blend it with the
Hmm.
graham crackers, and then it just becomes just one fine
Yeah.
crumb. Yeah.
Well, I'm getting hungry now.
Well, yeah. Now I want some cheesecake.
So really what we're looking for with breakfast is balance. So as Rachel said,
Yeah.
we can add things. You can have, scrambled eggs on the side, and that bumps your protein. Have some salad with your breakfast. Have some fruit, some yogurt, a handful of nuts. That's such a great way to round out a meal, is just to add a handful of nuts. And if you tolerate nuts, nuts and seeds, it's a great way to just round
Yeah.
out your meal. Yeah.
Yeah, I always add it to like yogurt, or what's a fun way to have breakfast is like in a parfait form.
Yeah.
So that feels desserty, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So that's a nice way to have it as well. Or maybe like even taking your parfait, like let's say you're having yogurt and fruit, and then maybe putting some like coconut whip on top to get extra fancy. There's just so many different like things you can do to make it feel just more desserty.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, there's the breakfast
For lack of a
banana
better word.
split. Have you
No,
seen
what is that? That sounds
you
amazing.
you take the banana and split it
Yeah.
and put the whipped coconut cream down the middle, and then put some other
Okay.
fruits on top. It's amazing.
Yum.
You put some
Yum. I
dried
would add
coconut
nuts
on
on
top
top
of
of that
there.
too.
Yeah, and nuts. Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
It's great. I've done it. I haven't done it in a
I
while. I
think
should
I'm gonna
probably
do
do that.
that.
You should do that.
I'm
It's
like
really good.
inspired now. I think breakfast.
So
That sounds so good.
yeah, so dessert for breakfast. Why not? Because you should enjoy your food. So just going
Yeah.
over the points, we want to balance breakfast. You want to have it in context. You want to look at your plate and see fat and protein and fiber, and you want to see something that looks like you want to eat it. So go for it. Get creative, and post in the comments section what your favorite breakfast is and what your favorite dessert is, and if there's something that we've inspired you to try. So comment below with that, and
Banana
I'm
splits.
super excited. What?
Banana splits for
Banana
breakfast.
splits.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I'm gonna do breakfast popsicles. I'm in Arizona. It is really hot, and
Yeah.
breakfast popsicles. What a great idea!
So
So,
good. Wake up refreshed.
so I really want to hear what you all have to say. Thank you for joining this Naptime Nutrition. Thanks for joining us, Rachel.
Thanks
So
for
great to
having
have
me.
you. And so follow me on Pinterest, follow me on Instagram. I showed you my profile and Rachel's profile. We're going to link to all of that below. And on Facebook, well, you're on there right now. So just click like and share if you know someone else who is a dessert fiend who might need some creative help with breakfast. And Toddler Test Kitchen, I mentioned, if you're Phoenix local, come join me for Toddler Test Kitchen every Monday and select Saturdays, taught by my friend Sarah. And thanks for joining us. If you have any other comments or questions, comment below. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Bye. Thanks.
See you next week. And I'm here always, Naptime Nutrition, 1 p.m. Arizona time, currently 4 p.m. New York time. And I'll see you next week.